What's going on YouTube? Zero Lead here. I'm back again with a new video, episode 69 of the Disco Era u.s.s Enterprise tutorial. Just want to thank you very much for tuning into today's video, and if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today we have a couple of things to work on. We've got about a 30-minute video. We're going to be continuing our work to finish up the cargo/transport room. We're going to move in to get some additional work done on the lowest deck of our engineering deck. We're going to actually complete that. We're going to do a light rework to the lighting for the lower hull airlocks, and then we're going to slightly rework the lower hull details. And we'll get into that at the very end of this episode. So right now we're going to get rid of these yellow crates, and we're going to kind of redesign this wall just on the sides a little bit here. You can see I'm going over 3 blocks. So essentially on the first cut, I'm just bringing that wall all the way back, and then we'll do like a little detail on the sides, and then within that we'll put a couple of actual storage bins down, just to give like the extra impression that, you know, this is a cargo storage room. We'll have to add in a little bit more lights, and then we can move on to the rest of this tutorial. But I think kind of how it's going right now, I think this room is actually coming out really good, what I was trying to convey. You can see like this arch here. We've used this a couple of times throughout the detailing of our interior, and that's something that we can definitely get away with in some parts of the ship, because you're definitely going to see that, you know, design cues are going to carry over. So this is something that we can definitely use in this part of the room here. We're going to cut out the middle like we've done before, and we'll go back one. I won't be able to do it on this side, but maybe we can just have like a little bit of the cut on that side. Maybe we'll come back to that. Now I'm actually you can see I went 1 back and I filled in the wall. I should have went 2 back and filled that in, so this way when I add in the storage bins, we won't have to do more work, but that's okay. We'll get there in just a second. I'm just going to add in a couple more lighting in between these blocks. We'll get rid of this first one. I'm just kind of tweaking it, wondering if I should move it over just by 1. Then we can add a pillar in each corner, just so the room isn't so boxy. There's something about that line there, I don't know, that's not really going to work. We're going to have to do something else for this wall. You see, we can't build any further back because then we're in the engineering section. So let's put that wall back. There we go, there's the chest. And I should have done the top one first, but that's okay. We're going to have to fill in the back wall here anyway, and take out a couple of these blocks first before we do that. But I think we can do a couple of rows right there of the chest, and I think it'll look pretty good. We can just do it off the back wall. That'll work. See just the 3 rows right there. I think that looks that's a nice little detail right there. Now we need the same thing on this side. So I think we have enough room where we can fit 2 rows. I'm gonna have to put that last one back. And then we're going to move that sea lantern, but let's fill that in with the gray concrete, and then we'll put the chest back. And then we can do 2 more chests above it. We'll have to fill in the back wall and then the walls around it. Don't worry, this is literally just an extra row of space, so we can just fill that in. And there you have it. I think just those 2 subtle changes right there, I think that does make quite a bit of a difference. I think this room really came together. I really wasn't expecting to get all this out of the room. Has a nice retro feel to it, just like the rest of the ship, which I've really been trying to, just ever so slightly do this ship just a little bit differently than my other Enterprise. And that was something that I was saying in my last video, that there are a couple of rooms that I haven't incorporated yet because I wasn't sure if they were in the ship. And someone pointed out that the Arbitrarium is actually on the was on the TOS Enterprise. And today, when I was doing my screen captures, before I did a new session, I actually went on Google and researched that a little bit, and I actually found the screenshots of that room, and I incorporated that into the ship. Now, I can tell you ahead of time that it's not going to be in the same area as what was on the Constitution refit, and we'll get into that when I build it and my reasoning for where I decided to ultimately put it. But getting back in what I got going on here, you can see it going down. We have a little bit of room down there, but you know what? There's not really enough room that's worthwhile doing anything down there, so I think we're just going to close off that level. If for whatever reason I decide I want to go back down there and add something, I know that space is there, but I'm not really going to push it at this point. It's okay to have a couple little extra spaces here and there that's not completely filled in, because as soon as you put the wall there, nobody's going to know. Because my goal with this is every room that we add on the interior, I don't want it to be just a bunch of random rooms. In other words, I really want to make a point as much as I can to build out as much as I possibly can find from the different shows and movies and try to incorporate them into this build. So now we're going to be transitioning into the next portion of our tutorial, and we're going to rework the lighting in our lower hull airlocks a little bit here in just a moment. Or actually, no, I stand corrected. We're actually going to be working on our lowest engineering deck. Then we'll get to the lighting. So we're at the very belly of our ship right now in engineering, and we're going to play around with this a little bit, but really we're just going to kind of try to make a cool room. This is really just an extension of the warp core. That's just kind of how I look at it. And I'll have like a little bit of details on the sides here, kind of conveying that, there's definitely technology in it, but for the most part, there's not a ton of machines all over the place on this ship like there was on my Enterprise A, because when any of the shows or movies, when they showed the original TOS Enterprise or any of the Enterprise A, really the only big machine you'd see was the warp core. Everything else was built inside the walls pretty much. So that's something I've really tried to take into consideration on this version of the Enterprise anyway. What we're going to do with this room, like these curved walls, like they're pretty and everything, but like in my other episodes, I think we're just going to flatten these walls out. So this way we can make something that feels a little bit closer in line to what the TOS Enterprise was, because when you're walking on that ship, you wouldn't see walls shaped like that really. It had a lot of straight flat walls. And that was largely due, because of the fact that they really just had a budget of $100 and a box of Christmas lights. But still, that's something, we can update it here and there and also use the references of what we can from the Disco Enterprise. But the TOS Enterprise is really going to be a lot of the references that we're pulling from this build, just because, there's just so little of that ship that we've seen so far, at least until the new show comes out. Once that does come out, I've talked about this before. I maybe might go back and rework some of the rooms. I don't know. We'll have to see where it's at, but I might just move on to doing different ships. But I'll wait. We'll wait and see. Play it by ear as far as how that will go, because there's definitely other ships I'd like to build, but at the same time, I have been known to go back to previous builds every once in a while if I felt the need to work on something and give it some more work. But I think as is, pretty happy with how this build is coming out. It's definitely come out a lot better than what I was expecting. I think that's for sure, because I kind of had some doubts here and there, because I felt like what I did with the Enterprise A, I thought the interior on that was pretty solid. In this one, like, it's similar in some regard, like as far as the structure, the overall composition is the same, but little things here and there, they're vastly different. So I'm just getting ready to make a little bit of detailing in the floor, just so we can continue this double white concrete line going all the way down. I think that'll look really pretty down here. Because at the same time, we don't have to make every floor look exactly identical. We can play around with it and have a little bit of fun, especially considering the fact that so much of this ship hasn't been shown. So, this is one of the cases where I say that we can take liberties with the ship, because, other than seeing like the main deck of the warp core, and like maybe like one other picture of it, you really don't see a heck of a lot more of engineering outside of that. So at this point, it's just really coming down to our imagination, and I'm really just trying to use the space that I have available, and then trying to make this look like something that looks and feels right, because I was sitting on this room for a little while. So as you can see, I'm just now working on this area of the ship, and that's because I wasn't certain what I wanted to do with this area just yet, and I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to make this the last extension of main engineering, and possibly, that this is the very bottom of the warp core. So it makes sense that they would need to access this thing from multiple levels, and I just broke part of it. That's okay, we're going to fix it. All right, so let's go up into it, and we're going to replace that with the gray concrete, and then I'm going to bring back in an anvil. We'll place that back down. We'll go back down into the room and continue on. Even with this part of I guess you can call this like the ignition of the warp core, or where like the dilithium crystals are ultimately connected to. Like, I really like how that area came out with the anvils. It looks pretty cool. While we're up here, we can do a little bit of detailing along the doorway here. Figure we definitely need a yellow line just to help convey that, this is a warp core, high energy area. And it's obviously, anytime you're dealing with that amount of energy, it's probably dangerous. So definitely want to have those caution lines going around it. I think that gives it just a little bit more of a sense of realism. We're going to bounce back between these two decks just a little bit here, between this deck and the bottom engineering deck. After we make these few changes on this particular deck, I'm not sure if we're going to come back to this room. We might, if I think of anything else, but the rest of the time that we'll be working on engineering will be down here in the bottom deck. And by the end of this episode, we will be done with this deck. I don't know if we'll be done with the deck directly above us. Like I said, I might make one more pass on it if I come up with another idea on what I want to do. but I know that I want to add like some ribbing into the roof on that level, but I'm trying to wait it out maybe a couple of days to see if there's anything else I want to do to it before I make a video on it. So this way, I can do it all together. But now you can see we're just I'm adding in sea lanterns going along the wall, skipping one, and I'm kind of um, sparingly doing this, but I believe eventually this is going to be going all the way down the length of the wall. We have a couple more things to do in this room to bring it together a little bit more. We can do lights going along this back wall. We could even do a solid color if we wanted. Um, that could be appropriate. It wouldn't look bad. Down this side, along the back wall in the center here, we're going to have green where the white concrete is in the center. And I think that extra bit of color definitely helps make this level pop just a little bit more, and it needs it. You can see I was messing around with the half slabs going along the roof here as I was wondering maybe if I would want to do ribbing going along the roof on this level, but the roof just really isn't high enough for where I can do exactly what I want to do. So I don't think we're going to do that. We're going to skip over into the next part of this session. I think we've got still one more thing to do before we're done on this episode. Still have a little bit of time left, have about 13 minutes or so. But now on each side of our walls, we're going to do half slabs going all the way down to make that curve just actually curve a little bit more instead of being so steep. I don't mind this line going straight across the top, but these two on each side here, I don't know if that's um, working. I don't know. So we're looking at it without those two blocks, and I think just that alone, that looks really good as is. And so we need some color and maybe a pillar, two pillars up of white concrete, just to make this room just a little bit more not a square maybe. This row that I'm adding now, that doesn't look bad, but I like this side better. This side feels more like a corridor wall, and I don't really like that. I don't really want to do that for this room. So we're going to take that out. Now we're back on the deck above us, going along the wall here, on the floor line. We're going to continue this white strip going almost all the way down. We're going to have one dark gray strip in between it, between the doorway and this line. Stop right there. I'm going to move these sea lanterns into the floor. There we go. Put one in the middle, in the back. We could always put carpeting over these, dark gray carpeting. You won't even really notice them. each of these corners here, we can do like yellow going all the way down it. I think that might be appropriate. And plus, it gives us a little bit more color to the structure going around it instead of it just being a gray structure. And it also continues some of the design cues from the upper levels and also the level below us. I don't think that looks bad. All right, so we're rocking. Now we're going to grab, we need lime green concrete and that white strip of concrete going along the back here. We're going to take just one row out and we're going to replace that with the lime green. And I think just doing this subtle change right here, it's going to make the room pop just a little bit more than how it currently is. I think just these changes that we've made alone, I think, to be perfectly honest with you, I could leave this room as is. I don't think anyone would bat an eye with it. I think this looks pretty good. And this is the other thing we need to do on this level, because this is bugging me. We need to make the stairs accessible from both sides. So that is the one downside that I made with this turbo lift, with it going all the way through the ship. It's not really, it's hard to blend it in with it. Sometimes just kind of sticking out as it is right now, and there's not really that much I can do about it. But I think having it to the design that I currently have it with, being able to access it from both sides on certain levels, I think that works, and it kind of makes up for the fact that it's sticking out a little bit, at least on the levels that I have it being accessed from both sides. It's almost like I did it on purpose, even though I totally, I didn't really do it on purpose. I just tried to make it work, and that's really how this whole build is. You know, I'll do something, and depending on the space I have on the interior or how I'm put something down, I just try to make it work with what I have around me. And a lot of this you'll be able to incorporate in your builds, but I'm not going to be able to think of everything. But as you continue building your ships, I made that too dark. I'm going to have to go back to the white concrete. But as you're building these, you will get better. I can tell you that. You'll definitely get better the more you do. And there's still a lot more tutorials to come. Once I'm done with the Enterprise, we got some cool stuff coming in the future. But while I'm still working on this, if there's anything that you would like to see me add to the ship, there's any rooms that I'm currently missing, don't forget, still to come, we have um, the Arbitrarium. That's definitely coming. Um, crew quarters, admiral's quarters, captain's quarters, junior officer's quarters, torpedo room, and I'm probably going to make a rec room, and I'm going to have at least one science lab, and of course the conference room. I can't I can't walk away from this build without having the conference room, because it was so iconic in the original series, so much so that conference room became a focal point, or not a focal point, but it was pretty important to like shows like the Next Generation, or even Voyager. That was a huge thing. You know, they'd all assemble in the conference room. I think a lot of that had to do with the original series, some of those episodes. So that's something I want to do. I think they showed it on Star Trek Discovery. Um, I looked a couple weeks ago and I couldn't find the screenshots, so I'm going to probably have to go back to the episodes I know that the Enterprise was in and see if I can find that scene where they were in the conference room and take some screenshots and use that, kind of try to see if I can incorporate anything from that into the build. These old lights here, we're going to get rid of them. All right, so now we're going to transition into the last part of our tutorial for today. We're going to rework the lighting. Well, not the last part. We'll have one last thing to rework after this, but we're going to be working on the lighting of our airlocks on the lower hull. So how I added that in the roof on the lower side. We're going to do the same thing on the upper side, but we're going to have to add half slabs right above that. And you can see right now I'm getting ready to do it, but as soon as I take a block away, I realize I can't really build upwards. And my solution for that is just adding two half slabs directly above it. That actually does not look bad. So I'm going to incorporate that just into the design of my airlock, into the entryway points. So this way we can have this lighting in here, and we'll be able to get rid of our we'll be able to get rid of the candles. It'll look much cleaner this way. And so that looks great. And then we're going to do the same thing to the underside. Get rid of the candles. We're going to have to add half slabs underneath here, going in the same way as the upper side, just so they match. On the underside of that, that's purely cosmetic, but it matches enough with the upper half, and that was my sole purpose for doing that. So now we're going to move into the last part of today's episode. We're going to work on uh, the last bit of hull detailing on the ship. Somebody actually spotted this out in the comments section. The reason I actually hadn't added it yet because I hadn't made a decision on which way I wanted to go with it. And I'm going to work it out a little bit here, and you're going to see like um, this is kind of where I was going at before, but I don't like this what I have right now because it looks good, but in the same time, this star, it looks more like a billboard to me, and it's just way too big, and it's not in scale with the rest of the ship or this pinstripe. Um, and it kind of eluded me for a little while as far as what I wanted to do right there. Because when you make that smaller, it becomes the shape of it looks less and less like a sideways star. But at the end of the day, there's not really that much that we're going to be able to do about it. There's going to be certain restrictions we're going to have within Minecraft. So we're just going to make do with what we can. That doesn't look bad, but I think I can come up with something just a little bit better than that maybe. That looks pretty solid actually right there, but it needs a little bit of tweaking. Ultimately, we're going to have to move it one forward. We're going to get rid of the last two blocks that I added because even with that, it's starting to make it into a billboard again, and I think it's just too much. All right, so we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And before we move this into the hull, we're going to move it forward by one. You can see that I'm adding it in on the same spot where I have it, but in just a moment, we're going to move it forward. Because it took me just a little bit to get this exactly what I wanted, but by the end of the episode, we'll have it in about a minute or less than a minute or so. See, on this side now, we're going to move it just one forward and make a slight adjustment to it. And I think this tweak here will be all we'll need to do. We're going to add one more block on the lower side to kind of give it like that curve, that angle. So that looks good. We're going to do the same thing on the other side now. Only thing that's missing is just one extra block on the bottom, and I think that'll look I think that'll look fantastic. So I'm going to add that in. See, that's where we want to be right there. That looks fantastic. It's in proportion, not only with the pinstripe, but also the rest of the ship. If we went anything bigger than this, I think that would have been a mistake. Well, that one went by really fast, but I think that's going to wrap up episode 69 for today. But I hope everybody enjoyed today's video. And if you did enjoy today's content, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And if there's anything that you want to see me build on this Enterprise, make sure to drop a comment while I'm still working on the ship. If there's any other builds that you would like to see me do, be sure to drop a comment before. Or if you have any questions regarding this tutorial, if I wasn't being specific enough, or maybe you get stuck, make sure to drop a comment. I'll try to do what I can to help you out there. I'm usually pretty responsive in the comment section. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow for episode 70. In fact, you can always catch my new Minecraft episodes Tuesdays through Fridays. And you can also catch my new Starship Evo builds on Mondays. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I will catch everybody on the next video.